The hypothetical scenario of Eddard Stark fleeing King's Landing with Renly Baratheon would dramatically shift the course of events in Westeros. Instead of adhering to his steadfast principles and placing his faith in the system of justice, Ned would be making a calculated decision to prioritize survival and strategic alliances over immediate confrontation with the Lannisters. Such a move would likely alter not only the dynamics of the War of the Five Kings but also the very fabric of alliances and rivalries across the Seven Kingdoms. Renly Baratheon's proposal to Ned at the outset of their secret meeting carried a simple logic. Seize power quickly by controlling King's Landing with the support of the Baratheon bannermen and the Tyrells. While Ned ultimately rejected this in the original timeline due to his commitment to Stannis as Robert's true heir, fleeing the capital with Renly would signal a willingness to engage in the pragmatic power plays that dominate Westerosi politics. This alliance between the North and the Stormlands would be unprecedented, combining the military strength of two powerful regions with contrasting leadership styles. Renly's charm and political acumen alongside Ned's honor and battlefield experience. The immediate impact would be the escape from Lannister clutches, averting Ned's capture and eventual execution. This alone would send shockwaves throughout Westeros. The escape from King's Landing would not be without challenges. Cersei Lannister, already aware of the precariousness of her family's position, would view the flight of Eddard and Renly as a direct threat to her power. Her likely reaction would be to consolidate control over Joffrey's rule and to dispatch forces to pursue the fugitives. However, Renly's ability to call upon loyal bannermen from the Stormlands would provide an effective countermeasure. Combined with the formidable Stark forces in the north, this coalition could rapidly gain momentum, posing an existential threat to the Lannister regime. Robb Stark, upon hearing of his father's survival and alliance with Renly, would likely be galvanized to greater action. Without the immediate need to march south in a desperate attempt to rescue his father, Robb could strategically focus on consolidating power in the Riverlands and preparing for a coordinated campaign. The support of Renly's bannermen and potentially the Tyrells would offer Robb the resources and manpower necessary to challenge the Lannisters on multiple fronts. Moreover, the presence of Eddard Stark in the decision-making process would temper Robb's more impulsive tendencies, providing strategic guidance and emphasizing the importance of unity among their forces. Meanwhile, the decision to flee would significantly impact Stannis Baratheon's position. In canon, Stannis is emboldened by Ned's posthumous declaration of his legitimacy as Robert's heir. In this alternate timeline, Ned's alliance with Renly would be seen as a betrayal of the very principles he holds dear, leaving Stannis isolated and embittered. Without the North's support, Stannis might still seek the aid of Melisandre and her shadowy sorcery, but his claim would lack the widespread legitimacy necessary to garner significant backing from other lords. This could lead to Stannis waging a more desperate and isolated campaign, focused on his own interpretation of destiny rather than on practical alliances. The ripple effects of Ned and Renly's escape would extend beyond the immediate factions involved in the War of the Five Kings. The Tyrells, always attuned to opportunities for political advancement, would likely formalize their support for Renly's claim to the throne. The marriage of Renly to Margaery Tyrell would solidify this alliance, bringing the wealth and influence of the Reach into the fold. With the combined forces of the Stormlands, the North, and the Reach, Renly's coalition would possess a numerical and strategic advantage over the Lannisters, who would be forced to rely on the military acumen of Tywin Lannister and the cunning of Tyrion to maintain their hold on the capital. In the east, the disruption of events in Westeros might indirectly affect Daenerys Targaryen's trajectory. With the Lannisters facing greater opposition at home, their resources for dealing with external threats, including a potential Targaryen invasion, would be severely strained. This could create an opening for Daenerys to gain a foothold in the Seven Kingdoms sooner than she does in canon. Additionally, the moral and ethical choices of Eddard Stark and their impact on the war might inspire or disillusion Daenerys as she grapples with her own vision of leadership. On the Iron Islands, Balon Greyjoy's opportunism would still lead to his declaration of independence, but the context of his rebellion would differ. If the North is fully aligned with Renly's coalition, the Starks could respond more decisively to the Greyjoy threat, preventing the protracted conflict that occurs in canon. This could lead to a swifter suppression of the Ironborn rebellion, further solidifying the strength and unity of the Northern forces. As events unfold, the the moral and political dynamics of Ned and Renly's alliance would come under strain. While their shared goal of overthrowing the Lannisters would initially unite them, fundamental differences in their visions for the future of Westeros would inevitably emerge. Ned's commitment to justice and the rule of law might clash with Renly's more pragmatic and at times self-serving approach to governance. Questions of succession, the treatment of Stannis, and the balance of power among the allied regions would create tensions within their coalition, threatening to undermine their shared cause. Furthermore, the presence of Eddard Stark in the broader conflict would alter the perceptions of key players across the realm. Many lords, inspired by Ned's reputation for honor and integrity, might choose to align with his cause, even at the expense of their own regional loyalties. Conversely, others might view his alliance with Renly as a betrayal of his principles, casting doubt on the legitimacy of their coalition. This duality would complicate efforts to maintain unity among the various factions, creating a precarious balancing act for the leaders of the alliance. If the alliance between Ned and Renly succeeded in unseating the Lannisters and securing control over King's Landing, the next phase of the conflict would revolve around the question of who should sit on the Iron Throne. Renly's charisma and popularity might make him the natural choice, but Ned's insistence on adhering to the line of succession could create a rift between the two leaders. The resolution of this dispute would determine the ultimate shape of the new regime and its ability to maintain stability in the aftermath of the war. Whether through negotiation, compromise, or further conflict, the alliance would need to confront these fundamental questions in order to secure a lasting peace. This alternate scenario, with Ned Stark fleeing King's Landing alongside Renly Baratheon, offers a rich tapestry of potential outcomes and complexities. It underscores the delicate interplay of honor, pragmatism, and power in the world of Westeros, illustrating how a single decision can reverberate across the realm, reshaping the fate of kings and kingdoms alike. The alliance between Eddard Stark and Renly Baratheon, while a powerful force in the fight against the Lannisters, would not be without its challenges. The journey south from King's Landing to regroup with loyal bannermen in the Stormlands or the north would be fraught with danger. The Lannisters, intent on maintaining their grip on power, would dispatch their forces to hunt down the fleeing lords. This pursuit would likely spark skirmishes across the Crownlands, marking the beginning of a larger and bloodier conflict. With Ned and Renly actively mobilizing their forces, the fragile stability of the Seven Kingdoms would crumble even faster than it did in canon. The Riverlands, already ravaged by the Lannisters, would become an even greater battleground. Lord Tywin Lannister, calculating as ever, would likely respond by focusing his efforts on quelling dissent in the central regions while securing alliances to counteract the growing coalition. Tyrion, ever the pragmatist, might push for diplomatic overtures to divide Ned and Renly's alliance, but the ideological and personal stakes would make compromise difficult. As the Stark and Baratheon forces gathered strength, the Lannisters would face the daunting prospect of being surrounded on multiple fronts. In the south, Renly's bannermen from the Stormlands and the Tyrell forces of the Reach would march against them. From the north, Robb Stark's armies, bolstered by the strength of the Riverlands under the Tullis, would push down through the neck. This two-pronged assault would stretch Lannister forces thin, forcing Tywin to make hard choices about where to commit his troops. Joffrey's rule in King's Landing would grow increasingly precarious. The political climate in the capital, already volatile, would be further destabilized by the prospect of a legitimate and well-supported rebellion. The small folk, suffering under the weight of war and famine, might rally behind the promise of change offered by Renly and Ned. This popular unrest, combined with internal divisions within the Lannister court, could weaken their ability to hold the city. Even Cersei's iron grip on power might falter in the face of widespread dissent. Renly, ever the politician, would likely seek to consolidate his claim to the throne by strengthening his alliance with House Tyrell. His marriage to Margaery would bring not only the Tyrell armies but also the vast wealth of the Reach to his cause. This would allow Renly to fund his war efforts and provide for his troops, further solidifying his position as a contender for the Iron Throne. However, this pragmatic alliance might create friction with Ned, whose insistence on justice and legitimacy could clash with Renly's more flexible approach to governance. At the same time, the question of Stannis Baratheon's claim to the throne would loom large over the alliance. Ned's deep sense of duty might compel him to advocate for Stannis as Robert's rightful heir, but Renly's charm and vision for the future would make him a more appealing leader to many of their supporters. This tension would create an ideological fault line within the coalition, threatening to fracture their united front. Stannis, for his part, would not stand idly by while his younger brother usurped the throne. Isolated and embittered, he would likely continue his pursuit of power through unconventional means. His reliance on Melisandre's sorcery might deepen, leading to more dramatic and destructive displays of power in his bid to assert his claim. While his forces might be limited in this alternate timeline, his conviction and willingness to employ radical methods would make him a wild card in the unfolding conflict. Meanwhile, Robb Stark's position would be significantly strengthened by his father's survival and involvement in the war. With Eddard Stark serving as a stabilizing force, Robb's military campaigns could be more strategically coordinated, avoiding some of the missteps that plagued his efforts in canon. The Northern Lords, buoyed by the presence of their revered leader, would be even more committed to the cause. This unity and determination could give the Stark-Baratheon Tyrell coalition the edge it needed to press its advantage against the Lannisters. However, the combined might of the North, the Stormlands, and the Reach would not guarantee an easy victory. The Lannisters, despite being outnumbered, would not go down without a fight. Tywin's strategic genius and ruthlessness would ensure that every inch of territory was fiercely contested. The Lannister forces, entrenched in the Westerlands and the Crownlands, would use their resources and defensive positions to prolong the war, inflicting heavy casualties on their enemies. The war would drag on, devastating the countryside and causing immense suffering for the people of Westeros. As the conflict intensified, other players in the Game of Thrones would begin to make their moves. Balon Greyjoy's rebellion, while potentially less impactful due to the northern focus on the larger war, would still pose a threat. The Ironborn's raids along the western coast would stretch the coalition's resources, forcing them to divert attention from their primary objective. In the Vale, Lysa Arryn's neutrality might be challenged, as both sides sought to gain the support of the Vale's formidable knights. Even Dorne, traditionally cautious in its involvement in the politics of the realm, might begin to assert its interests in the chaos. Far to the east, Daenerys Targaryen's path might also be altered by the shifting dynamics in Westeros. The weakened Lannisters would have fewer resources to monitor external threats, potentially allowing Daenerys to move more freely as she built her power base. The success or failure of Ned and Renly's coalition would influence how Westeros greeted the return of the Targaryens, either as saviors or as yet another force vying for control in an already war-torn land. In this alternate timeline, the resolution of the War of the Five Kings would depend on the ability of Ned and Renly's alliance to maintain its unity and overcome the logistical and ideological challenges of war. Victory would require not only military success but also the forging of a lasting political settlement that addressed the underlying tensions within the coalition. Whether this settlement could be achieved without further bloodshed or betrayal would determine the ultimate fate of the Seven Kingdoms. The flight of Eddard Stark with Renly Baratheon, while preventing the immediate tragedy of Ned's execution, would unleash a cascade of events with far-reaching consequences for Westeros. It is a testament to the complexity of George R.R. Martin's world that even a single change can create such profound and unpredictable ripple effects, shaping the destiny of nations and individuals alike.